Starting us off at number 10 is Rightful Heritage. Richard III was a big player in the game. He was a protagonist during the War of Roses and was a King of England and Lord of Ireland from 1483 till his death. Back in 2012, over 500 years after his death, his remains were found in a Leicester parking lot. His original tomb was removed during the English Reformation, and people just assumed they had been thrown in the River Soar, but they were wrong. Through radiocarbon dating, the University of Leicester confirmed the corpse was Richard III, but his mitochondrial DNA didn't link him to any maternal relatives, meaning any descendants of his sister Anne of York, and there was no match whatsoever, meaning at some point in the royal bloodline someone had a secret affair with somebody, which means that there were so many kings and queens that came after them that probably did not have the right to rule, including Queen Elizabeth II. And even looks wise, all his portraits depicted him as brunette with dark eyes, but DNA revealed he was actually blonde with blue eyes. So I mean, major tea there. Which one of y'all's treated? Coming in at number 9 is The Secret Son. King George V was the king of the UK and British Dominions, as well as the Emperor of India from 1910 till his death 25 years later. He married Mary of Teck back in 1893, and their youngest son Prince John developed epilepsy at the age of 3. Now the couple thought this diagnosis brought great embarrassment to the royal family, so they hid John at Sandringham House in Norfolk. Anytime he came into town to visit the doctor, the blinds would be fully down so no one knew who he was or where he was. The family excluded him from most of their biographies and photos, so he lived a quite lonely, secluded life. His seizures ended up getting worse as he got older, and he died at the age of 13 to the devastation of his parents. His brother, on the other hand, said he was relieved the animal was dead. His illness was only made public after his death. And I feel like this whole thing was so sad. First of all, your brother's a prick. Secondly, were your parents that devastated since they just left you hidden? This is so sad. Prince John. Prince John. At number 8, we have Princess Diana's depression. Now, it's not new information that Prince Charles and Diana had a tumultuous marriage. In audio tapes aired originally on US television back in 2004, Diana talked about how unhappy she was within the marriage, her struggle with depression, and her multiple suicide attempts. She explained how she threw herself down the stairs when she was 3 months pregnant with Prince William, landing at the feet of the Queen. In regards to her depression and suicide, Princess Diana explained, "I was trying to cut my wrists with razor blades. We were trying to hide that from everybody. I was just so desperate." She also talked about having bulimia and that the eating disorder started after Prince Charles put his hand on her waist and said, "A bit chubby here, aren't we?" How rude! Whose husband says that to them? If that was my husband, I would have pushed him down the stairs. And producer Chris was like, "That's just frightfully rude." It is indeed. And of course, after her death, we knew she was unhappy in the marriage and had finally found happiness with Dodi Fayed, but I don't think people knew the extent of how bad things actually were behind closed doors. Like, I felt like I knew a lot about Princess Diana because I feel like my parents were just obsessed with her when I was growing up, but I didn't know she had multiple suicide attempts. I didn't know any of that. And it kind of saddens me. It definitely saddens me. Filling at number 7 slot are the Nazi connections. The love affair between British King Edward VIII and American socialite Wallis Simpson took the 30s by absolute storm. Wallis had already been divorced twice before meeting Edward, so they could never actually get married. Royals can't actually marry someone who's been divorced if their divorced spouse is still alive. Either way, secret forbidden royal love, big whoop, we've seen it all before. However, what we haven't seen are the couple in question having huge Nazi connections. Edward could not stay king and marry Wallis, so he abdicated the throne to his little brother in 1937. That same year, the couple toured Germany and met Hitler. Wallis had even been the lover of the Nazi foreign minister back in the day, and Edward had been accused of being a Nazi sympathizer in the past as well. Now at number 6 is the staff member. Princess Anne, Queen Elizabeth II's only daughter, got married to Mark Phillips, an Olympic equestrian. The marriage was complete shit, and despite being married for 20 years, it was dubbed a joyless sham. When they finally got divorced in 1992, British tabloid The Sun claimed they had secret love letters that Anne herself had written, and they were apparently for a royal staff member. Oh, hee hee hee. That same year, she announced she was marrying Timothy Lawrence, a retired British naval officer and also one of her equerries. Oh, how the tables have turned. I love it when the tables turn. I love it when it's like an affair with a royal and one of their servants. It's like hoo hoo hoo. You know what I mean? I know you guys are all doing that inside, I just did it outwardly for you. Coming in at number 5 is The Club. I don't even know how to talk about this one without being offensive, so just know I don't mean anything maliciously. So Princess Anne is the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, and her daughter is Zara Phillips. In 2011, Zara married rugby player and England captain Michael Tindall. That year, after winning against Argentina, the team was in New Zealand when he decided to go to a dwarf throwing club. According to Michael, no one on the team threw a dwarf, but just the fact they were there was just messed up. I didn't even know establishments like that existed, and it caused so much outrage that stars like Peter Dinklage, who was born with dwarfism himself, called them out on it. Can you imagine that kind of secret? What? How? What? What is that? What is that? What is a dwarf throwing club? At number 4 is Beatrice and the Killer. Princess Beatrice of York is the daughter of Prince Andrew and Sarah, making her Queen Elizabeth's granddaughter and 9th in line for the throne. So she's more of a sideman royal, to be honest. We don't really have to pay too much attention to her, but just a little bit. Back in 2006, at the tender age of 17, Beatrice started dating American playboy Paolo Liuzzo, and honestly, honey, the playboy should have been all the red flags you needed to get out of that one. Before they started dating though, Paolo savagely beat and killed 19-year-old Jonathan Duchatelier at a party. Apparently Jonathan had confronted Paolo about how he was disrespecting girls at the party, and that didn't sit well with Mr. Playboy over there. His manslaughter charge was somehow dropped and reduced to just battery and assault, and to top it all off, he even violated the terms of his probation while trying to impress Beatrice. Thankfully they didn't date long, and good thing too, because 3 years later he was charged with possessing cocaine after crashing a £40,000 Audi after he didn't pay his casino bill. Filling our number 3 slot is The One That Got Away. Princess Margaret is Queen Elizabeth II's little sister, and when she was 14 years old, sometime after World War II, she met Captain Peter Townsend. In 1953, her dad, King George VI, died and her sister became queen. At 22 years old, Margaret was in love with Peter, who was married now with 2 kids. He had divorced his wife as she was having an affair, and so Peter and Margaret desperately wanted to get married. Royalty can't marry divorcees if their spouses are still alive, and the Queen had to consent to their marriage. Queen Elizabeth II fought for them hard, but Winston Churchill was like, nah, B, my cabinet is not gonna accept that marriage. When news finally broke out about the two of them, the government posted Peter at the embassy in Brussels. Margaret then eventually had to abandon her tragic love story and ended up marrying photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960. The one that truly got away. Comment below if you've had one that got away. Now at number 2 is the real parentage. The British royal family is probably the most famous one in our day and age. We know Prince William and Kate and co, we know Harry and Meghan Markle and little old Archie. We're invested, let's be real. I remember the day William and Kate got married, I took so many videos of the live wedding on TV, I was like, this is history is being made, it has to be on my phone. But either way, as I mentioned at the start of the video, Princess Diana was not happy. In a tell-all interview she did back in 1995, she came clean about the fact she had a 5-year-long affair with military man James Hewitt. And then as Harry grew older, the resemblance between James and himself became more and more evident. Harry was born in 1984, which made the timing make sense, but Hewitt and Diana herself emphasized that he was born 2 years before the affair even started. But was he though? I mean, of course they'd never admit if Harry was a or not, because it would rock the world. So I mean, I guess we'll really never know, but they do look quite similar, I'm not gonna lie. And finally, at number 1 is the black sheep. I love a black sheep in the family. I think I'm my own family's black sheep, not gonna lie. Now you'd think I was about to go off about Prince Harry, but actually I'm gonna be talking about Prince George, the Duke of Kent, and perhaps the most controversial member of the royal family. He was the 4th son of King George V and Queen Mary, and he was the target of never-ending salacious rumors. Even after marrying Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, he had a string of affairs with celebs, socialites, you name it. And he was supposedly bisexual too, having a string of male and female lovers, which obviously did not sit well with the time or his title. He partied a lot and was regularly accused of abusing heroin and cocaine like he was the proper party boy. Step aside, Paolo, whatever your last name was. Those drugs originated from him knowing Kiki Preston, who he then went on to share many menage-a-trois with. In August of 1942, he and 14 others took off in an RAF flying boat, which later crashed near Scotland, killing everyone but one. All his personal life issues were kept under wraps, but many believe his lifestyle got way too much for the royal family to control, so they commissioned someone to take down the aircraft. There also was an additional person on board the flight that no one could identify. Starting us off with number 10 is The Other Woman. Now I actually knew this one beforehand because I used to be obsessed with the CW show Reign, which is primarily about Mary, Queen of Scots, and Elizabeth I. Either way, the show took the juiciest facets of the royals' real lives and incorporated it into the show, and this one was a major plot line. It was believed that Queen Elizabeth was having an affair with one of her most trusted friends, Robert Dudley. He was a suitor for her hand for years before marrying Amy Robsart, which made their secret relationship that much more juicy. We love a juicy under-the-table relationship, don't we? No, we don't. It's cheating. Ruins lives. Don't do it. Elizabeth would even turn down every suitor that came her way for Robert, but the two lovebirds couldn't get married while Amy was still in the picture. Amy, you're looking like a problem, my friend. Conveniently, she died a very mysterious death, and it was rumored that Elizabeth and Robert orchestrated the whole thing. Amy's body was found with a broken neck at the bottom of the stairs, so most believe she had either fallen or committed suicide. But the coroner's report concluded she had deep puncture wounds on her head, meaning someone had hit her either before she fell down the stairs or purposely threw herself down the stairs or was pushed down the stairs by whoever hit her in the head. Maybe it was Robert Dudley. Coming in at number 9 are the secret cousins. Now, we already saw in part 1 that the royal family does not handle mental disabilities well, regardless if the afflicted were their children or not. Queen Elizabeth II actually had 2 first cousins whose existence was covered up to the best of the family's abilities. Nerissa and Catherine Bowes-Lyon were the children of John Bowes-Lyon, who was Queen Elizabeth's uncle. The girls were incarcerated in Earlswood Hospital, a mental institution, back in 1941. The girls were mute but otherwise had mischievous fun personalities, yet staff at the hospital claimed the royal family never came to visit them even once. Nerissa passed away in 1986 and Catherine as recently as 2014, yet they had both been listed as dead since 1963. The family didn't even attend Nerissa's funeral, for God's sake. Like, come on, put some respect on her name. How dare you list them as dead when they're clearly alive? At number 8, we have Epstein and more. Now, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, Queen Elizabeth II's third child, is a questionable royal. Let's just say he's definitely not a stranger to controversy. Back in 2011, it was revealed that Andrew was scarily good friends with convicted sex offender and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was soliciting underage girls into prostitution and was found guilty of the crime back in 2008. Sarah Ferguson, who's Prince Andrew's ex-wife, claimed he had asked Jeffrey to pay off some of her debts, but he retorted back saying he'd cut all ties with the man. But why would you even have ties to him in the first place, Prince Andrew? Are underage girls your flavor? Disgusting. And sadly, the Prince's saga of bad company just doesn't end there. He also went on a public holiday to Tunisia with Tariq Khitouni, a convicted gun smuggler. Apparently, Tariq had gifted him and his daughter some expensive jewelry in exchange for some of the Prince's business influence, and he took the bait. Prince Andrew, you're just not the sharpest tool in the shed, are you? No. Filling at number 7 slot is The Price. Now, this one made me laugh a lot. I don't know if it should have, but I found it bloody hilarious. So we just got into Prince Andrew's dirty laundry, so it is only fair we expose his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, lovingly referred to as Fergie in the UK, also not to be mistaken for Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas. She's Fergalicious. This is just plain Fergie. Now, back in 2010, a recording was made and released by an undercover reporter who had captured Fergie selling access to Prince Andrew in exchange for money. The reporter offered her a whopping $700,000 for the information, and she can be heard saying, "Do you understand that I absolutely have not a pot to piss in? I left the royal family with friendship, no money. Diana left with £20 million, and that's why the Queen is my friend, because I never took a bean from them. I have the biggest heart and the biggest of everything, but I have zero money, I have nothing." I mean, I don't think the Queen's gonna be your friend after that, Fergie babes. I think you kind of nipped that in the bud, didn't you? Now, at number 6 is the criminal offense. Now, as a normal person in society, you really don't want to have any criminal offenses on your record, and for a royal, the pressure is 100-fold to make sure you don't. But thanks to me, your host, for keeping up with the royals, we found a pair of royals that have been charged with a criminal offense, exposing you left, right, and center. Ha ha ha. Coming to you straight from quarantine. The Princess Anne, the only daughter of the Queen, was known for her charity work more than anything else. However, in 2002, she and her husband went to Windsor Great Park to walk their dogs. All of a sudden, one of their dogs got free and aggressively attacked 2 kids who were riding their bikes. The couple were then obviously taken to court, they had to pay a fine, and they were charged with the offense. The dog wasn't put down to the dismay of the kids' families, but then a year later, that same dog killed one of the Queen's corgis. So I mean, this really boils down to the age-old question of who did let the dogs out. Coming in at number 5 is The Love Child. While we're on the topic of Princess Anne, the secret involves her too, so I guess she's no stranger to controversy either. In 1973, Anne married Lieutenant Mark Phillips at Westminster Abbey, and it was a huge deal. The whole thing was televised. You know how royal ceremonies are. They're big. Now, while the couple had a rocky marriage from beginning till the end, it was complete and despite being married for 20 years, it was dubbed a joyless sham. 12 years into their marriage, Mark ended up having an affair with an art teacher from New Zealand called Heather Tonkin, and from that affair came a baby girl. And even with a child from another woman, the marriage continued for another few years before finally coming to an end. That same year, Anne then married one of the royal staff members, so I mean, there's that. There's a lot of just tea going around, isn't there? At number 4 is Lady Sarah. Princess Diana has been a household name ever since I can remember, but this one's actually about her older sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, who I had no idea even existed. McCorquodale, where have you been? Well, apparently Sarah was the one that introduced Prince Charles to Diana, starting the strained love affair. However, Sarah actually dated Charles herself before Diana did. The two dated in the 70s, but then broke up, and clearly whatever happened left a bad taste in her mouth, because she went on to say she would never marry Charles, whether he were the dustman or the King of England. I don't think I could ever date one of my sister's exes. I feel like that's just so bloody weird. That's just too weird for me. I couldn't do it. Filling in the 3 slot is Camilla Gate Part 1. Watergate was bad for the world, but mostly for America, and Camilla Gate was the same for the British, albeit it was a lot funnier. Now, a month after Prince Charles and Princess Diana announced that they were going to split up in 1989, a phone conversation was recorded between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, and let's just say the content was R-rated. The couple was still married at the time when Charles and Camilla were talking about the dirty on the phone, which made Diana quote-unquote sick. Charles at one point even said he wished he lived inside Camilla's trousers like a Tampax, just his luck. I'm not gonna say anything on this. I'm not gonna comment. Now, at number 2 is Camilla Gate Part 2. Now, if a leaked bedtime conversation of the two wasn't bad enough, I think this is the biggest plot twist of all. In a 1995 interview with Martin Bashir, Princess Diana admitted she had known about Charles and Camilla's affair all along, and had actually spoken to Charles about her own love affair with James Hewitt, her riding instructor. I feel like Diana was so past the point of even giving a single shit. She was like, oh, you're cheating? That's cool, dude, so am I. How's she doing? This is how James is doing. And finally, at number 1 is Coup. I feel like for the most part, Prince Andrew has been on this list far more times than I'd like. Like, poor Prince Harry got a bad name as the black sheep of the family. Was not a single person paying attention to Prince Andrew and the show that he was creating. Like, what happened to that? Back in 1982, Andrew started dating an American girl called Kathleen Stark, also referred to as Coup. Now, things were going pretty well with her, and so he introduced her to his mum, Queen Elizabeth II, and she quite liked her. What the Queen didn't know, however, was the fact that Coup was a soft-core adult actress, and a lot of naked pictures of her had appeared in British tabloids and newspapers. So when she found that out, you can imagine what kind of conversation ensued thereafter. Andrew. Personally, I don't care what somebody does. I feel like adult actors and actresses get a very bad rep, but I mean, it's a job at the end of the day.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have never travel in pairs. This is one travel rule that certainly makes sense, but it truly is quite dark when you really think about it. The rule is that any heirs to the throne are not allowed to travel together. This is of course in case some sort of accident happens. Not every heir to the throne would be injured or perhaps killed. It is certainly very smart and sensible, but it has got to be grim, just constantly preparing for the worst thing to happen. It is of the utmost importance to the royal family that they preserve the line to the throne. This travel rule is actually becoming more frequent among those who can afford this type of luxury. In our number 9 spot today, we have the black outfit. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. Another travel rule that the family must follow is in regards to an item they must bring with them. It is unusual to see the royal family dressed in black, despite when a specific occasion calls for it, but every time they travel, they're required to bring an all-black outfit with them. This is again to prepare for the worst case scenario. scenario. If they are on a trip and someone important passes away, then they need to ensure that they are ready with the appropriate clothing for when they are able to touch down on their home soil. This is pretty practical, but definitely also pretty morbid. I mean, imagine having to fuss over what you're going to wear when you're actually just mourning the loss of someone close to you. Certainly wouldn't be the top of my list, but maybe that's why I'm not cut out for royalty. In our number 8 spot today, we have no touching. There is a rule that you cannot touch a royal. I'm sure there are a multitude of reasons for this, most to do with security, but aside from a lucky handshake, you really are supposed to keep your distance. I suppose it's because I live the life of a regular person, but I feel like that would be so sad. I feel like you'd be lacking in so much connection with a ton of interesting people, and wouldn't you just be dying to hug some of them? Apparently, this is part of the reason why the queen always wears gloves. She, of course, must shake a lot of hands while out making her royal appearances, and of course, she does not want to fall ill. I guess the royal family was more prepared for the global pandemic than any of us. In our number 7 spot today, we have the royal women. Women everywhere are no stranger to feeling unnecessary pressures to look and act a certain way, but that is most definitely extremely heightened when you're a woman in the royal family. There are a ton of random rules for women, such as what hats they have to wear and at what times, or what kind of clothes they can and can't wear, but one of the absolute weirdest rules in my opinion is about their coats. Apparently it's unladylike to remove your coat in public, which is truly a memo I did not receive. So if a woman in the royal family wears a coat to a function, that coat has to stay on the entire time. Imagine, you guys, you're just absolutely sweating, but you have no choice because it would seem unladylike. I feel like that is just some outdated rule that for some reason still continues to linger around, but I guess there truly are darker things on this list, so it could always be worse. In our number 6 spot today, we have King Charles I. Okay, this is one that goes all the way back, and it really creeps me out. So, King Charles I was tried for treason after the Civil War, and he ended up being beheaded in 1649. I guess in the 1600s, everyone was beheaded, so this wasn't necessarily abnormal, which is certainly weird, but that is a history lesson for another day. The weird part, however, is that apparently his head was sewn back on his body so that he could sit for a portrait, or it was perhaps supposed to be a sign of respect. Either way, it's weird and very gross. I feel terrible for whoever's job it was to do that, and I also feel bad for the artist who was forced to paint that. Talk about traumatic. It does certainly make sense though that people say that Charles' ghost still haunts a building, because there's no amount of haunting that could make up for being beheaded and then having your head sewn back onto your body. In our number 5 spot today, we have money making. We obviously know that the royal family is rich. It certainly isn't a surprise to any of us to hear that. I mean, they made a tax-free $97 million in 2017, so it's not like they're struggling by any stretch of the imagination. And while there are some claims that most of their income comes from their private estates and tourism, not everyone believes that that is the case. There are actually quite a few people who believe that the royal family costs British taxpayers a whopping $450 million a year. That's a ton of money. I truly do not know enough about anything to really choose a side, but it certainly is something to think about. I know with taxpayer money we pay a lot of salaries, and it usually is for a good reason, but $450 million is definitely next level. In our number 4 spot today, we have pets. As we all know very well, image is everything for the royal family, and that is down to the finest, smallest detail, including pets. It is well known that the Queen absolutely loves corgis, and how could we possibly blame her? Apparently, however, if a dog is not a corgi or a Labrador, it is socially looked down upon. I can't describe how insane that is. They're dogs. If you brought a dog who had just been rolling around in the mud everywhere with you, I could see why that wouldn't be as widely accepted among fancy social circles, but only giving the choice of a few random breeds seems kind of ridiculous. Apparently, Meghan Markle actually had to give up her beagle named Guy a few years ago before she joined the family. Of course, she has since left, and I'm sure is happy to own whatever dog she sees fit. In our number 3 spot today, we have their controversial history. The royal family has quite a history of being perhaps less inclusive of others than would normally be accepted. There's actually quite an extensive history of racism in the royal family, and as we know, especially after that Oprah interview, things haven't necessarily recently changed. There have been certain gestures or small remarks made here and there that have definitely been a little out of touch, I'll call it. And unfortunately, Meghan Markle, being a biracial person, unfortunately had to experience a lot of it firsthand. I mean, just to give a few examples of this, Prince Philip did ask Indigenous Australians if they still throw spears at each other, and once, Princess Michael of Kent tried to apologize after being called out for saying something racist, and this is what she said: "To call me racist, it's a knife through the heart because I really love these people. I even pretended years ago to be an African, a half-caste American, but because of my light eyes, I did not get away with it. But I dyed my hair black." There is so much to unpack in that one sentence alone, but I have an extremely strong feeling that this apology probably wasn't well received. In our number 2 spot today, we have the royal affairs. There have been many rumors over the years about the royal family and their extramarital affairs, and I'm saying that this goes way back. So far back that one of the first accusations of this within the royal family dates all the way back to Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Since then, it has only continued with people such as Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend, Princess Anne and Commander Timothy Lawrence, and of course, Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, just to name a few. The latter of those definitely being the most famous, especially when Prince Charles was confronted about it by his wife at the time, the beloved Princess Diana. Apparently, Charles responded to the confrontation by saying, "Well, I refuse to be the only Prince of Wales who never had a mistress." Maybe not the attitude to keep when speaking to your wife who you're cheating on. I don't know. In our number 1 spot today, we have the flag at half-mast. It is totally normal for a flag to be flown at half-mast following a great tragedy, so this is certainly not a dark tradition that the royal family has, but it's the time that they did not do this that is dark that I want to talk about today. After Princess Diana's death, people everywhere began mourning the loss, especially considering how young she was and how it all happened so quickly and unexpectedly. But the crazy thing, or I guess when you really think about it, the potentially very sinister thing about it, is that the royal family just continued on as if nothing happened. Of course, business still needs to be conducted at times despite grief, but for many of them, there was simply no grief. The flag at Kensington Palace wasn't lowered to half-mast until the people complained about it because they obviously felt like it was a slight to the princess. There were no public statements made until a day before her funeral, and there are many people who believe that if no one spoke up about this, there may have never been any action taken by the family.